Welcome back to Enclave Forge. Today we're going to take a look at the XV25 Tau Stealth Suit. So the Stealth Suit itself I was wearing last year at Warhammer Fest, and for the most part it was really comfortable to wear compared to the XV22 that I wore previously. It was much lighter and much more comfortable to wear, but there were a few issues with it that I've never been truly happy. The first issue we're going to tackle is the outside skin of the head and the top of the helmet, so the actual faceplate. It was really poor quality, and it had lines running down it that no matter how much filler I used, I just couldn't get rid of. The second thing we need to tackle is the internal structure. Now, there is a metal framework that I wear inside of this. The actual body is just lightweight EVA foam, and that all just attaches to the metal framework. Now, when I was wearing that last year, one thing I noticed was these shoulder straps were starting to bend, and because they were bending, the height of the suit slowly dropped to the point where the helmet was resting directly on top of my head, and there's metal beams running across that allowed the faceplate to open up. And since they were resting on my head over a couple of hours, that really started to hurt. So we need to strengthen the shoulders. And that's just going to be a dead simple case of bracing it against the spine. Third thing we need to address is the hips. There is a strip of metal that runs around my hips, just above in fact. And it's got some padding at the moment, but it's not really good enough. So I need to add more to that. Possibly some upholstery foam just to give it a bit more comfort. And the buckle system that I had there for it to wrap around, much like a backpack, needs to be seen to. Recently, when I was adjusting it, it came off the frame because the webbing had actually frayed away from the eyelet, so that needs to be fixed. Once that's done, we need to come up with a way that we can actually attach the pelvis directly to the metal frame, so I'm not wearing a belt or anything like that. It just clips on, which makes it much easier to take off and take on, especially if I've got a spotter that is helping me with no prior knowledge, as often is the case when I go to these events. So I've come up with the idea of using these metal eyelets. Now they have a hole that you can put a bolt through, and I can space them around the actual hip itself. I only need 3 or 4 of them in order to attach the pelvis on, and they'll just clip on with some carabiners or something of the sort. Once we've gotten these basic and boring bits out of the way, then we can have a look into the more exciting stuff. There's things I'm planning with a gimbal on the eye lenses and some servos and Arduino to control. So it should be quite interesting, but we need to get these basic repairs and upgrades out of the way first. So we've got the helmet here. As you can see, I've already done one side. We just need to now do the other side. I've got my new foam from Polyprops, knife with a nice sharp blade, and I've got my contact adhesive, so we're ready to go. Right, that's all glued together. There's a lot of excess to cut off, but I'm going to wait overnight before I do any of that. So I'm going to let the glue set. Once it is set, then I'm going to trim the excess along here and also take a look at this back here, because this isn't glued on yet. There's just far too much excess, so that's the next step. It's been a day. I've added more glue to the top of the helmet. While we wait for that to fully set, we might as well get started with the actual faceplate. As you can see, I've already got the skin on it and added a fair amount of the filler where it's actually needed. The lens cluster I've taken off so that we can redesign that and put a proper gimbal in. I don't quite know what form that's going to take just yet, so I've left it out. What we're going to do now is just really boring, start sanding all these areas down and see how we get on. See if we can get it as smooth as possible. So that's all the sanding I'm going to do today. As you can tell, it's quite boring, so I'm just going to do a bit at a time as we go through this project. What we're going to move on to now, though, is the skeleton on the inside of the chest piece. Currently, as you can see here, the shoulders are not that stiff, and we need to brace them somehow. So I've got other pieces of steel that we're going to brace up here like that, across this top section. Once that's reinforced, we shouldn't have any more flex in the shoulder. It shouldn't be able to lift up. And that was the problem I was having. As the weight was pulling down on the frame, the shoulders were lifting up. And at that point, this top piece was resting directly on my head and really started to hurt after a while. So that's the reason for this. This cross brace, the chest piece actually bolts to it. It may look like some substantial metal work, but it's actually really lightweight, especially when you're wearing it. It's no heavier than a rucksack with the steel work inside. So I think that's what we're going to do next. We're going to first brace up here, and then we'll take a look at the hips and the padding. We've got all the parts made now and holes drilled out. The next step is to reassemble the chest piece and see if it's any stronger. So that's it assembled. We have these cross braces now coming off the shoulders. It's really difficult to push up now on the shoulders, which should work out really well. Now, previously it was happening over a period of a couple of hours. So even if these do start to bend, I think it'll take a lot longer than the couple of hours. So that's good. So I'm just going to put this on and then we'll see how it feels. So this now on my shoulders, you kind of get an idea of how this sits. It sits quite well on my shoulders. It feels quite high, the spine especially, and the clearance between my head and the block of wood is quite vast. So I don't have any worries now of it slipping down. I can pull on the bottom and the shoulders barely flex, which is a vast improvement on what it was previous. So that's all done. The next step now is to work on the padding, which I'll save for another day. So now with the chest piece on, you can kind of get an idea for how the armour actually sits on me as a person, especially when you stick that on the front. So it's starting to be a bit much better. What I've noticed is these corners have been pulling inwards. So that'll be another improvement we do. We need to reinforce them and pull them back out so that they are here. That can just be done with some extra foam on the insides. Other than that, I think it works quite well. The reinforcements done to the shoulders, it's a lot easier to wear, much more secure. I'm able to lift it off much easier as it gives me a handle to hold. The next steps, we obviously need to repad the inside of this. Currently I'm just using some EVA foam and it's not the most comfortable in the world. We need to address the clips down the bottom, the actual buckles to hold it around my waist and pull the bottom of the spine to my lower back. I've got a few ideas for that, but I need to have a think. We do need to pad the inside of the armour here as it's a bit too flimsy. The shoulder pads actually attach here and here in these two holes, and it keeps bending the armour out of shape. So I think what we need to do is reinforce just with some extra layers of foam here, and then the 2 bolts that sit through, we have a couple more layers of foam here that the shoulder pad that can then sit on top of. Hopefully that'll allow it to stick out a bit, because currently it kind of just flops down the side as it bends, so we need to have a think about that. But all in all, I'm very pleased with the improvements we've made there on the shoulders. That should be a lot more comfortable in the coming conventions. Okay, it's been another couple of days. The glue is now dried. We need to get it onto the cutting mat and cut off a lot of the excess, and then we can see what else still needs to be done. So let's get that done. So that's the top of the helmet now reskinned. We have some areas that need filling in and neatening up, just a bit of sanding and some filler. I'm very happy with how that looks. It looks very smooth down the sides. A bit of bubbling here, but I think that just needs a bit of tidying up. But once it's painted, you won't notice anyway. So I'm really happy with that. Let's assemble the faceplate back onto the chest piece, and we can see what the entire thing looks like now. So this is the chest piece so far. There is quite a lot of dust on it from the sanding, but that'll just wipe straight off. See, it's much smoother than it was previously. There are no layer lines now. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for this week. Next week we'll be looking at the next steps on the burst cannon, seeing if we can get that extra detail, building out the body. I was going to replace some of the parts, but my 3D printer's actually broken, one of the cables has snapped. So I'm waiting on the spare parts to arrive. Remember, if this interests you, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell icon, and I will see you next time.